Good morning, dear students. Today, inshallah, we're going to talk about the second part in our lesson, sex-linked trait. Sex-linked traits, these are traits that their genes are present on the sex chromosome. We all know that we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. The first 22 pairs are called somatic chromosomes or autosomes, and the last one, pair number 23, is called sex chromosome. In female, it's XX, they are similar to each other. In male, they are XY, they are different from each other. So in this part, we are going to talk about the traits that their genes are present on the sex chromosome. Mainly, we are going to talk about the traits that their genes present on the X chromosome. As you can see from this picture, is that X chromosome is much larger than Y chromosome, so it contains greater number of genes that controls other traits other than the sex determination, while Y chromosome contains only genes that is responsible for sex determination in male or other traits related to male only. So we are going to talk about this part today. The sex-linked traits which are present on X chromosome only. They are the traits that their genes are located on the sex chromosomes and their appearance is not affected by the sex hormones. We are going to take two examples about the sex-linked trait. The first one is the Drosophila insect and the second one in humans. In humans, we are going to take 4 examples for the sex-linked trait. The first one is the colorblindness, the inability to differentiate between different colors. The second one is the hemophilia, which is the liquefaction of blood. The third is muscle atrophy, which means weakness of muscle. And finally, the short-sightedness. Let's now take the first example in the sex-linked trait, Drosophila insect. The sex-linked trait in Drosophila insect was first discovered by the scientist Thomas Morgan. He was making studies on the inheritance of the eye color of the Drosophila insect. When Thomas Morgan started his experiment on the Drosophila insect, he crossed a red-eyed female with a white-eyed male. He found that all the members of the first generation had red eye. From this, he concluded that we have here a dominant trait and a recessive trait. The red-eyed color is the dominant and the white-eyed color is the recessive trait. And when he crossed the second generation, he found that 75% of the resulted fly had red eye and only 25% with white eye. So here it proves that this trait, which is the eye color of the Drosophila insect, is a Mendelian trait, as it follows Mendel's first law. And he concluded that this trait is a sex-linked trait. That means that its gene is present on the sex chromosome, because he noticed that all the flies that had white eye in the second generation were males. We are going to represent Morgan's experiment by using letters. A red-eyed female, XX, it carries dominant trait of the red eye color, R capital, R capital. And the white-eyed male, XY, it carries the recessive gene on the X chromosome only. Here in this case, when the parents start to make their gametes, we will find that the female will have only one kind of gamete, X, that carries R capital, and the male has 2 kinds of gametes, X with R small and Y gamete. When we cross them together, we will find that we will have a female XX with R capital and R small, and a male XY with R capital and nothing on the Y chromosome. And here the ratio will be 100% red-eyed. In the second generation, when we cross a red-eyed female hybrid, meaning that it has R capital and R small with a red-eyed male with R capital on its X chromosome, we will find that the female will have two kinds of gametes, X that carries R capital and X that carries R small. In the male, he will have two kinds of gametes, X with R capital and Y gamete. When we cross them together, we will find that the result will be a red-eyed female pure XX with R capital, and red-eyed female hybrid XX with R capital, R small, and red-eyed male with XY, R capital on the X chromosome, and white-eyed male XY with R small on its X chromosome. From this, we can conclude that in male, eye color is represented only by one gene, while in female, it's represented by two genes as it has two X chromosomes. While in male, it's represented only with one gene as it has only one X chromosome. Here, in order for the white eye color appear in the female, it must have two R small on each of its two X chromosomes. We will have here the ratio in the second generation, 3 red-eyed insect to 1 white-eyed insect. Now let's answer this problem. Here, what is the result of crossing a red-eyed male Drosophila with a white-eyed female in the first and second generation? Let's now talk about the symbols that we are going to write. Here we have a red-eyed male with XY, so as long as it has red eye, so it will have dominant gene on its X chromosome. As in this figure, while the white-eyed female, XX, because the white is the recessive trait, so the two X chromosomes in the female must carry small letters R small, R small. Here all the gametes of the female will carry R small, and the gametes of the male, we will have two kinds of gametes, X that carries R capital and gametes with Y chromosome. Here we will have the results. If the result is a female, XX, it will carry R capital, R small, it will be with red eye but hybrid. X with Y, هيبقى X with R small, the male will have white eye. Here we will have a ratio 50% red-eyed to 50% white-eyed, 50% female and 50% male. In the second generation, we will have female hybrid XX with R capital, R small, crossed with a white-eyed male XY, and the X carries R small. When they make the gametes, we will have two kinds of gametes in the female, X with R capital and X with R small. In the male, we will have also two kinds of gametes, X with R small and Y gamete. When we make crossing, this will be our result. A female red-eyed hybrid with R capital and R small. A female with white-eyed pure with R small on both of its X chromosome. A red-eyed male with R capital on its X chromosome. A white-eyed male with R small on its X chromosome. Here the ratio will be different. We will have 25% red-eyed female, 25% white-eyed female, 25% red-eyed male, and 25% white-eyed male. Now let's talk about the sex-linked traits in humans. As we said, we are going to talk about 4 examples in the sex-linked traits in humans. The first one is the color blindness, meaning the second one is the hemophilia, which is liquefaction of blood. The third example is the muscle atrophy, which is the weakness of the muscle. And the fourth one is the short-sightedness. In color blindness, these are people that suffers from inability to differentiate between different colors, especially the red and the orange. Hemophilia is the people that suffers from liquefaction of blood, meaning that when a cut happens to them, injury or something, they start bleeding. Normally, the bleeding stops due to the formation of blood clot. These people do not have this substance or chemical substance in their blood that is responsible for the blood clotting to stop the bleeding. Muscle atrophy is the weakness of the muscle. It's a disease that starts at age 13. During this stage, the muscles start to get weakened till the person dies. Shortsightedness, this is the inability to see the far object clearly. This person that suffers from shortsightedness can see the near object clear and the far object not clear. In humans, as we said, the chromosome X carries the genes that are responsible for some somatic traits, like the traits that we have mentioned before, the 4 examples that we have mentioned. So in this case, we will have that the father will pass these genes to his daughters only, but not to his sons. Why does this happen? Here, as we know, the father has XY chromosome. So during the formation of gametes, he's going to pass only the X chromosome to his daughters. The X chromosome that carry the genes that controls these traits. In this case, he is going to pass these traits to his daughters and not to his sons. Here we have a very important note. Sex chromosome Y in male human carries some genes that are related to somatic characters without the presence of the corresponding genes to them on the sex chromosome X, such as the gene that is responsible for the appearance of hair on ear margins in males. So these traits are restricted only to males, as it's carried only on chromosome Y, which is absent in the female. Let's now talk about the first example in the sex-linked trait in humans, which is the color blindness. As we said before, it's the inability to distinguish the colors, especially the red and the green ones. We cannot differentiate between them. This trait is controlled by a recessive gene that is carried on the X chromosome only. So in order for this trait to appear in the female, she must have the 2 recessive genes on each of her X chromosome, as we can see here, X that carries C small, X that carries C small. And it appears in the male when his X chromosome carry the recessive gene, as we see XY with C small carried on the X chromosome. Let's now take a test for our eyes. Look at the following figures. What is the number in both the first and the second circles? Your success in reading the numbers correctly indicates that you are healthy from color blindness. Yes, in the first one we have 45, and in the second one we have 74. Now let's take a problem about the color blindness. What is the result of crossing color-blinded man married to a healthy woman with pure trait? I'll give you time to answer this question alone. This will be the result. The color-blinded man is represented by XY, and the X chromosome carry the recessive gene of the color blindness. The healthy mother, XX pure, carries the dominant gene, C capital, C capital. The gametes of the mother, all of them will have X with C capital, and the gametes of the father will have X with C small, which is the gene that is responsible for the color blindness, and Y gametes. When the crossing occurs, the girl will be XX with C capital from the mother and C small from the father. Here we will have a healthy female but carrier because it's hybrid gene. And we have a male XY with C capital on the X chromosome, healthy male. Now the second example for the sex-linked trait is the hemophilia. As we said before, hemophilia, it's a genetic case causes blood liquidity. This trait is controlled by a recessive gene carried on the X chromosome. Unfortunately, this gene may cause death, especially in childhood, as the bleeding cannot be stopped. If we have here a carrier mother, XX, that carries the dominant gene H capital and the recessive gene H small that is responsible for the hemophilia, is crossed with a healthy father, XY, that carries the dominant gene on the X chromosome, we will find that the female or the mother will have two different kinds of gametes, X that carries H capital and X that carries H small. And the father, we will have two different kinds of gametes, X with H capital and Y gamete. If crossing occur between the female gamete that carries H capital with the male gamete that carries H capital, we will have a female healthy with both dominant gene on its X chromosome, so she will be healthy female. And if the X chromosome that carries the H small is crossed with the X chromosome of the male that carries H capital, also we will have a female healthy but carrier. If the X that carries H capital from the female crossed with the Y of the male, we will have a healthy male. But if the gamete of the female that carries X with H small is crossed with the Y, here we will have a boy or a male infected male with hemophilia. As we said before, that these genetic traits, sex-linked traits, is controlled only by one gene in the male, as he carries only one X chromosome, and controlled by two genes in the female, as she has two X chromosomes.